In all of these Where Are They Now videos I've done, sadly, we've looked at players like Dennis Rodman, Gilbert Arenas, Delonte West, Lamar Odom, and Darius Miles, who went from having great NBA careers or potential to finding their way out of the NBA to a not so great life. Today, we're going to look at another one of these cases when we look at Steve Francis. He went from defying all odds and not only making it to the NBA, but becoming an NBA All-Star, to barely getting by and barely escaping prison. We're going to look at where he is now. Before that, we're going to take a quick look at his career. Steve Francis was born and raised in Maryland. His mother died of cancer in 1995 when he was 18. It was a tough time for him, so straight out of high school, he took 2 years off of basketball. Since he took that time off though, he had to play for a junior college. And when he did, he became the first player to go undefeated on 2 teams and take both to the National Junior College Tournament. After his great track record with the junior colleges, he joined the University of Maryland's basketball team. They weren't at all a great team before Francis joined, but after he joined, he shockingly led them to finishing second in the ACC and making it to the Sweet 16 in the NCAA. He averaged 17 points, 4 assists, and 3 steals a game in college. After his junior year and losing the Sweet 16, he said he was 99% sure he'd return to Maryland for his senior season, but instead he went with the 1% and entered the 1999 NBA draft, where he was selected with the 2nd overall pick by the Vancouver Grizzlies. I mean, instead of being excited to make money and play in the NBA for a living, Steve was upset that he was drafted by the Grizzlies and didn't want to play there. So he got traded to the Houston Rockets, where he'd go on to be named Rookie of the Year in his first season, then a 3-time All-Star, and averaged 19 points, 6 assists, and 6 rebounds a game. He said the best time of his career was when his Rockets coach Rudy T said he was going to put everything into Steve Francis, so he brought in Hakeem Olajuwon and Charles Barkley to come train him and the team. And that's when he realized how lucky he was that he made it to the NBA. But after Rudy stepped down as head coach, Steve would have problems with the new Rockets coach, Jeff Van Gundy, so they traded him to the Orlando Magic. And shockingly enough, he didn't want to play there either. He'd average 18 points, 5 rebounds, and 6 assists a game in his 2 seasons there. He'd get suspended for conduct detrimental to the team, so the Magic traded him to the New York Knicks. When he was on the Knicks, his averages dropped way down to only averaging 10 points a game before getting traded again to the Trailblazers, before they bought out his contract. He said it wasn't his fault that his play declined on the Knicks, it was because of the coaches and teammates around him that made him not able to play the way he used to. I mean, it's starting to sound like Steve's just not a people person. But since Jeff Van Gundy was gone, he made a return to the Houston Rockets. But he couldn't even make the playing rotation in the regular season now in Houston before he had season-ending surgery. After he fought back through his injury, he'd returned to the Rockets late in the 2008 and 9 season before getting traded again to the Memphis Grizzlies and then getting waived. So at only 30 years old, at what should have been the prime of his life, no other NBA team had any interest in Steve Francis. So this was the last time he was ever seen on an NBA court. So where is he now? Well, Steve Francis says that he chose to retire at only 30 years old, not because he wasn't playing well anymore and because no team wanted him, but because he felt like he had zero respect from anybody within the NBA, so he didn't want to be there anymore. So instead, in November of 2010, he signed with the Beijing Ducks of the CBA. And unlike most former NBA players that go off to China and average 30 points a game, Steve Francis went there and averaged 0.5 points and 0.7 rebounds through 4 games before they cut him from the team. So I don't think it was the Knicks or any of those other teams' fault late in his career. I mean, I don't know what happened to his skills, but I guess it was just a personal thing. Sadly for Steve Francis, after leaving basketball, he struggled in his personal life. Well, actually, the struggle started in his time in China, when he checked in and played 17 seconds of an actual CBA game, forgetting to take his ice pack off his leg. He got made fun of all over the internet and on a few late night talk shows. After his time in the CBA, he would go on to make his own music video, Finer Things, in 2012. After that, Steve was drunk in a nightclub and got choked out by former NBA player Steven Jackson. And since leaving the NBA, he started to look pretty rough. In this 2016 picture, Steve Francis looks like a 60-year-old man.
Look at the top of his head! Look at his lips!
But he was only 39. He started to look like he was aging so quick that people thought he'd been on heroin. But of course he denied that. Actually, he said, since I'm not gonna play basketball anymore, it's time to party and travel. Did I do drugs? Hell no. Did I smoke some weed? Hell yes. Was I drinking? Hell yes. So he said that he partied so much that he got tired of drinking, but his drinking never got out of hand. Steve said he's gonna be Steve and do whatever he wants and doesn't care what the public says about him. So while he was being Steve, in 2015 he was on stage at a rap show when out of nowhere a random person tries to yank his gold chain off his neck. But the problem was his head came with it. No, his head didn't fall off, the chain just didn't break. So Steve got dragged to the floor, then stomped on while the guy was trying to get the chain off. A bunch of people crowded and tried to help him, but the guy eventually got the chain off and ran away. He got away, but Steve eventually got his chain back. In 2015, Steve Francis told TMZ that he could still play in the NBA today, and in 2016, he told Slam magazine that after he attended the All-Star Weekend in Toronto, he considered training for 6 months to a year to get back into shape to make an NBA comeback, but he ultimately decided not to do that. I mean, good choice not to waste your time, Steve. Shortly after that, in November 2016, he was arrested for a DUI and possession of marijuana. The story here gets a little crazy. While he was getting arrested, the cops noticed a huge gold chain that Steve was wearing, so for some reason that made him go off on the cops. He said, "Now you playing with fire. Take a picture, play with that chain and watch what happens." After that, he said the chain was worth $100 million. I'm pretty sure that's about as much money as he made in his entire NBA career. Well, no wonder that guy tried to pull it off his neck. But charges of threatening police officers were added to his arrest. On his way to the police station, he asked the cop to drop him off at his grandma's house. Like, what are you doing? How much did you drink? But obviously that didn't happen. But he pled guilty and surprisingly didn't face much jail time. But 1 month later, in December of 2016, Steve Francis was at a Florida restaurant. He went in and asked the bartender for a flashlight, then went back outside and stole what was reported as $7,000 worth of jewelry, makeup, and cash from a car outside. 2 days after that, he went to the police station with a bag full of the stolen things and said, "I just robbed somebody, take me to jail, I'm turning myself in." But a report says they didn't arrest Steve Francis because they had nothing in their system to hold him. In March of 2017, Steve took a deal to attend a pre-trial intervention program, where if he can pass a random drug test and alcohol test throughout a 1-year period, do 50 hours of community service, pay a $7,300 fine, and apologize to the victim, then he'll avoid 5 years of jail time. I mean, it's sad to see a former player that defied all odds and made it to the NBA with millions of dollars turn into what he has today. I mean, it seems like he took the wrong path after the NBA and couldn't deal with life after basketball, like we see with a lot of other players. Steve always had problems with people in the NBA and his coaches, and now he's having problems off the court too. Hopefully his 1 year in that program will straighten him out and he'll continue to live a good life with his wife and children like he said he wanted to. He has said that his time after basketball was better than his time in basketball, and when asked about what his legacy was, he said, "I came, I saw, I conquered."